Amazing. Hi, everyone, and welcome. For those of you who are just coming in, we are here today, of course, for our Dell Scholars information session. We're going to be talking about this really awesome scholarship and get, a lot of your questions answered, hopefully, during our time today. Firstly, I want to introduce myself. So my name is Isabel. I'm Isabel Roloff. I'm a program manager at Let's Get Ready. It's possible that some of you may actually know me already from our SAT prep program. But if not, it's wonderful to meet you. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I know that it's a Monday. I know that it's a busy time of year, so I want to firstly thank you all, but also commend you on, carving that time out in your busy schedules to be here. So with that said, we are going to go ahead and get started. Awesome. So here is what our time today is going to look like. Firstly, I'm going to walk us through what the Dell Scholarship is. What are all the benefits that you would receive? What makes a person eligible for the scholarship? And then, what does the application process ultimately look like? Then I'm super excited because we are having a special guest with us today. Nadalyn is one of our amazing coaches at Let's Get Ready. She may even be your coach for some of you. And she also is a current Dell Scholar. So she's going to talk a little bit about, you know, herself, what that's been like for her. And then we're going to move into a Q&A for the rest of our time. And now before we move forward, I know that, first of all, you're all here because you want to learn about Dell, right? But you may have also been partially swayed to come because we're hosting a raffle today, which we very much are. So there are two things that you need to do in order to, be eligible for that. The first thing you've already done, which is just being here today. And the second is asking a question in the chat during the Q&A when that comes up. So in order to adequately take account of everyone who is here and everyone who is going to be ultimately put into that raffle, please take a moment right now to update your name on Zoom to reflect your first and last name. And that way, that's how we're going to kind of take attendance in that sense so that your name can be added into that raffle later. Hi, I see some folks are just coming in. Okay, so what is the Dell Scholarship? The Dell Scholars Program is actually a lot more than just a scholarship. It's a whole support system that is there to help you navigate the financial, academic, and also personal challenges that can come sometimes in college. So what are those benefits? Definitely the biggest item here is the $20,000 scholarship. This is allocated throughout your time in school. You would also gain access to a personalized, multifaceted support for the academic, financial, and emotional life challenges that can sometimes, prevent students from completing college. So with this piece and with some of the others that we will go through, you'll see that Dell is, again, about more than just the financial piece. I think they're really cognizant of the fact that, people who are going to college in order to really thrive and succeed, we want to make sure that, and they want to make sure that, your needs are met outside of just classes, but in general. And so other things include a laptop, textbook credits each year, a wellness platform that's tailored for students and provides services from legal resources, work-life balance, stress management, debt, even childcare, things of that nature. And lastly, we have an optional teletherapy service that you could opt into if students are interested in, professional counseling, be able to help connect you to that. Okay, so how do you know if you're eligible for this scholarship? We're going to go through that right now. First things first, you need to participate in a program-approved college readiness program, otherwise known as a CRP, in grades 11 and 12. Okay, so what does that mean? Basically, Let's Get Ready is your college readiness program. And so, if you're a senior participating with us, that would satisfy the 12th grade requirement. And then for 11th grade, that can, look different. It can be maybe you joined our SAT prep program, maybe you joined our Access Core program. If anyone has any individual questions about your eligibility in terms of your Let's Get Ready participation, please feel free to send me an email and I can check that for you. Okay, so there's your Let's Get Ready participation. You need to also be on track to graduate from an accredited high school in the current academic year with a minimum of a 2.4 GPA. We are going to come back to that a little bit, but basically it means you're a graduating senior. And again, that 2.4 is that is really and truly what they mean, right? I know some scholarships I think are like really focused on just 4.0. However, if you have at least a 2.4, I really sincerely encourage you to apply. Okay. I also see we have some questions coming in the chat already. I see them. I'll definitely make sure that we come back to those. So thank you for that. In order to be eligible, you also need to demonstrate a need for financial assistance. Now, the way that that is calculated by the scholarship is that you need to be eligible to receive a federal Pell Grant in your first year of college. So we're going to get back to that point in a little bit, that financial piece. And lastly, you need to plan to enroll full-time at an accredited higher education institution in the pursuit of a bachelor's degree in the fall directly following high school graduation. So you're in high school right now, you're graduating, and then you're planning to immediately get started, as in, you're not taking a gap year or something like that for this particular scholarship, with the ultimate goal of getting a 4-year degree. All right, so as promised, we're going to come back to this financial component. So we're going to talk about what a Pell Grant is and how to know if you yourself are eligible for one. So first things first, the Pell Grant is a federal grant meaning it's money from the government that you do not need to pay back, awarded to students demonstrating exceptional financial need. And the way that that is determined is by completing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So it's not until you complete the FAFSA that you are able to verify to Dell what your eligibility is in terms of this financial piece. So I want to note a couple of things. Firstly, that this does mean that if you're someone who is not eligible to complete the FAFSA, that does mean that for this particular scholarship, you would not be eligible. So if that is you, I encourage you to talk to your coach so that they can, help connect you to other opportunities that are right for you. I also see something in the chat about the fact that the FAFSA doesn't open until December 1st, which, by the way, is actually the deadline, which we're going to get to for this particular scholarship. So what that means is that it's really not a piece that you actually need to, worry about too much at this point. My advice is to get the first round of the application in, which is a pretty quick and easy step. And then when it does come time to filling out the FAFSA, we are going to be here to continue to support you with that, and we'll help when it does come time to that, if that makes sense. Yes, the FAFSA will open in December. That is correct. So again, key piece here is I would say don't worry too much about this yet. We're going to be here to help when it does come time. And I see we have some questions. I'll just ask that you save those for the Q&A portion, but I hear you and I really appreciate how excited you all are. Okay. Coming back to this college readiness programs piece as well. As I said before, college readiness programs, aka CRPs, we are going to serve as that for you on your application. Now, like I said before, the scholarship does require participation during both 11th and 12th grade, and you'll see that on the application, you'll fill information out separately for that. This is a little glimpse into what that looks like on the application, but the reason why I want to highlight it is because there's some key information that you're going to want to fill out. So firstly, you're going to enter Let's Get Ready. And then it's going to ask for a college readiness counselor. It's going to say counselor name, email address, etc. So for this, it is super important. I want to take a moment to emphasize this, that you enter my contact information. So I know that all of you work with wonderful coaches here at Let's Get Ready. I also know that you may have a wonderful counselor at your high school. But for this particular purpose, this is for the sake of me just verifying everyone's participation with Let's Get Ready. And so please make sure to take a moment right now and write down, take a picture, a screenshot of my contact information so that you can ultimately enter that onto your app. So yeah, take a moment right now to do so. And by the way, if there is anyone who has already started an application and may have put someone else, you can always go back and edit that.
So wait, what you're saying is that when we come to this on like the website link, we just put your name instead? Or like
Yeah,
how?
great. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so when you'll see this piece on the application, this college readiness programs piece, you're gonna want to put my contact information in there. And that is, again, this isn't like a recommendation, this isn't a recommender or anything. It's purely for the purpose of me being able to say, yes, this person participated in our program.
And
Also, for anyone who has experienced some error in entering it. I've heard that a couple times. Try to just type it in manually instead of copying and pasting, because sometimes, for whatever reason, that does cause an error. And then you'll also see that there is a field for a phone number. That is actually an optional field, so you can just go ahead and skip that.
so do we just put yours under the college when you think 12th grade, but can we also put under the 11th grade if we
Yes,
say okay.
absolutely.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I kind of forgot like who was my
Yes, yeah, 100%. So again, I can go in and check if you were participating with us in 11th grade. So, no need to think back to who your coach was at the time, or someone else that you may have known. Let's Get Ready at the time. You can just go ahead and put mine for both.
yeah.
Great. Okay, we are going to go ahead and move forward. So, okay, we've talked about some of those eligibility requirements, but I want to talk a little bit more about, you know, beyond just those base requirements, what is it that Dell kind of looks for in an ideal candidate? What are those things that are going to help your, application, really stand out? And so Dell, the way that they summarize it is that their ideal candidate is someone who demonstrates a unique GPA. And so, like I said before, they don't just mean grades. Their GPA stands for grit, potential, and ambition. So, grit meaning, taking action to address or overcome personal challenges in their lives related to their families, schools, or communities. Potential by participating in college readiness programs and seeking out academic rigor. So elaborate on that piece a little bit. Just by being part of Let's Get Ready and engaging with us as a program, you're demonstrating that you're, putting in the time and energy into planning for your college career. And additionally, I would say an example of academic rigor could be, for instance, taking an AP course or something like that. And then the A, standing for ambition, by preparing themselves and planning for their dream of graduating with a college degree. So something that I think can really um, demonstrate those goals are, showing them that you've put in research, you've put in thought, you're being intentional about, what you want to accomplish in college, where you want to go, and you're thinking about that goal in a concrete way. Um, I really quick, I do just see a question that I want to address that I saw someone asked about a college class and whether that counts for potential. absolutely. I think that's something that would certainly stand out. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to get into some timeline information. So the great news is that the scholarship is already open. You can already start your application. It seems like some of you already have, which is amazing. So you have from now until December 1st to submit everything. December 1st, I want to emphasize, is a hard deadline. They absolutely do not accept late applications. So please make sure to do so earlier. And honestly, the earlier the better, just to know that you've done it. I was hinting at this a little bit earlier, but the first stage of the application, this initial application, is honestly pretty straightforward as far as applications go, ones that I've seen. It Once you have the information in front of you, it asks for some grades and information such as that. It really takes about like 15 minutes to enter everything, maybe a half hour, depending on um, you know your style. But it's a really super easy first step. And so once again, you're gonna want to submit that by December 1st. After that, they will announce who is selected as a semifinalist on the 10th of December. So pretty quick turnaround. And then if you are selected as a semifinalist, you'll have a couple more items to compile and send to them, including a couple of short responses that we will provide support with when the time comes. So if you're selected as a semifinalist, you'll then have until January 27th to submit everything. And then the Dell Scholars, the finalists, will then be announced on March 18th of next year. And so, something that is on this slide that I want to highlight is this data point that Dell Scholars graduate at twice the national average compared to their peers. I think this is really a testament to the holistic support that the scholarship can provide. And it's one that I really encourage you all to check out and to apply for. Okay, this time we are going to watch a video. Hopefully you can hear it. Let me know if you can.
Sometimes running through life, I feel like you're going to encounter paths that are going to be smooth, well lit, and other points in life you're going to find paths that are going to be rugged and unfamiliar territory. I've always felt that I had the responsibility as the oldest child in my family to help my parents in any way I could. They sacrificed so much in their life to put me in the position where I am in today. I never looked at college to be really as a path I would take. I didn't think it was fit for me, and I didn't think it would actually have a better outcome for myself or my family. It was until my teachers, my counselor, influenced me to think outside of the box. So that's specifically when I started looking into scholarships. My counselor recommended the Dell Scholars because she said, hey, it's a really good scholarship. They help you out not only financially, but they help you out in the long term. And in my head, I was kind of like, well, I mean, sure, but there's a lot of other good students. What makes me stand out? My counselor told me, you should still try. Have some faith in yourself. Once I got the Dell Scholarship, I was excited and motivated to go into college and finish. After graduating, I was extremely motivated to go out, start building my career, and taking that next leap into my future. Working as a cybersecurity consultant, I get to work with people not only in the United States, but I get to work with people across Latin America. I get to help people that I feel I have a personal connection with. My overall goal when going to college was not only to achieve a higher education, but to actually be able to provide for my family and give back to them. Now, after graduating college with the career that I have, I am able to confidently say that I can. I know the process for becoming a Dell Scholar can be hard, but it's something that will change your life entirely.
Awesome. Okay. I want to quickly just address one thing before we move on to our next section, which is the fact that you've all been super engaged so far, and I am loving to see all the questions come in. And I really just want to make sure everyone feels confident and knows that we are definitely going to get to your question. We're going to get through as much as possible today. And if we don't get to it today for whatever reason, or if any of your questions are sort of tailored to your individual, eligibility or things like that, I'm going to follow up with you afterwards. But I am so excited because it's time for our guest today. I'm really, really excited to introduce Nadalyn. She's here to talk about her experience as a Dell Scholar. And yeah, I think with that, I'm going to pass it over. So, Nadalyn, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Nadalyn and I go to Johns Hopkins University. I'm majoring in public health on the pre-med track. And I'm a 2021 Dell Scholar, so it's been a few years. And on top of all of this, I think it's already been mentioned, but I'm an Let's Get Ready coach. So I'm definitely understand like all the places you guys might be in right now and everything that is going through your mind. But I just want to share a little bit about my experience to maybe make it seem a little bit more possible. So when I was applying to college, I was a senior and I was a first generation student. So I'm the first out of everyone in my family to ever have gone to college at all. It was a very scary process. I wasn't sure exactly what anything meant. And I was nervous about finances. So hearing about scholarships in general, I was like, any scholarship I heard about, I was immediately interested in. And when I got a text message from Let's Get Ready about this scholarship, I thought it sounded too good to be true. But I was like, I'm gonna apply because it does not hurt at all to at least attempt. The application process, in my opinion, was not too bad. Like compared to other scholarships, they really make it fair, a little bit easier and manageable, at least in completing the application. They make it really accessible. So like Isabel said earlier, it's two parts, there's two rounds of it, and most of it is honestly answering questions, and then the second part is the short answers and the FAFSA stuff that you might have to submit, but it honestly does not seem as bad as it might sound. I think some of the questions might be difficult, but that in those cases, like just make sure to lean on your community and like your Let's Get Ready coach or even Isabel, and just make sure to ask those questions if you have any small like concerns. But throughout the whole application, it was a pretty fair like time for me. I didn't think it was anything too hard. Once I heard back that I was a Dell Scholar, I had to start the onboarding process where I answered some more questions about where I was going to college. And then I had to give them some documents like my financial aid for my school. And then other than that, I had to set up an account, which you'll learn about a little bit more if you make it to the next round and so on. But it's just a small account so that you can start getting access to those funds. And then on top of that, once I completed all of those things, I received my laptop and I also got access to my benefits. And I saw someone had a question about like what the 4-year warranty means, and it does mean that you do get like if your laptop breaks or anything, they will do what they can to help you fix it. And so that's everything that I received as a benefit. Other than that, I did quickly just want to mention that I saw another question about financials and like maybe being a QuestBridge scholar. One really, really cool thing about the Dell Scholarship that I don't think a lot of people know, including myself, I didn't actually know until this year, but the Dell Scholarship is really, really cool in that it's $20,000 for you to spend or to use in your education, but you don't necessarily have to invest that money right now. If you need to, then it's great that you have that money right now, but if you don't need to, don't let that necessarily hinder you from applying because you might need it later on. So as I said earlier, I'm a pre-med student, so I plan on going to medical school. And I found out that even if I take a gap year or two, I can use that money for medical school and I don't necessarily only need to use it for college. So it's really nice that it's providing me that reassurance right now in college, but it can also help me a little bit in the future. And that's a little bit about my process and my process with the Dell scholarship.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction, Nadine. I also want to say I too just learned about that. Nadine was the one that told me, and I thought it was really, really cool just how long, you have to use that in case you don't necessarily need it right away. So I thought that was really amazing. And I also want to just, again, thank you, Nadine, for sharing your story with us. And now we're going to be able to open it up to some more questions. So at this time, feel free to start putting your questions in the chat. I'll ask for the sake of just like organization to put your questions in the chat and I will read them off as many as I possibly can. So while you're doing that, I'm going to pose our first question. So Nadine, you are a Dell Scholar. That means you are someone who was selected for the scholarship. I'm wondering if there's anything you feel like you can kind of point to in your application that you feel may have, kind of particularly led to being selected as a Dell Scholar. How do you kind of choose what to share about? And do you have any more insight into, things that you think they like to see?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that might have helped me with my college or my Dell Scholar application was that I made sure that it was my whatever I answered, like if there were any questions about my activities or just personal questions, I made sure to show a different part of myself throughout each question because I think it's so hard, like if they ask you 10 questions, it's so hard for them to really get to know all of you. So I think just showing them as much of you as you possibly can be helpful, but reiterating those other parts at the same time, like if you can connect anything, that would be great. And then another thing that I think was really helpful is just sharing those activities that I thought were really meaningful for myself, like that I enjoyed doing or that like helped me understand what I wanted to do in the future, just because I think that if those experiences are meaningful to you, it's a lot easier to express that on a piece of paper and the reader is able to understand that and see that. So if you have any activities that you might be like, okay, like this is my favorite thing to do, or like this is something that I really think shows who I am, I would include that in my scholarship, in my application, and just try to have as well-rounded of an application as you can.
Amazing. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. I see a question in the chat that I think is really good. And someone asked, could the Dell Scholarship be taken back for any reason? And I think to expand on that, if I may, Nadine, if you could speak to, maybe what some of the things are that you need to do each year. Do they ask, for things to submit or, things to kind of ensure that you can continue having the scholarship? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So there are some requirements. I think there's a GPA requirement, and I'm not 100% sure what that GPA requirement is, but I'm assuming it's the 2.4, just maintain it throughout college. But I'm not 100% sure on that. And then we have to do some questionnaires at the end and sometimes at the beginning of the semester. It's just asking about like the classes you took, how many credits you took, and then asking you a little bit about like your workload. So they're really holistic in that they offer you that financial aid, but they're always looking for ways to help you in other aspects of your college life. So they ask questions about like, what's your work-life balance like? Do you have people to like support you and all of that? And just making sure to fill those out on time, or they give you like, I think a month to fill those out. So just making sure to hand those in before they're due is another way to just make sure that you keep receiving the scholarship year after year.
Cool. Thank you so much. And I can definitely, in case anyone's curious about that piece for the GPA, that's something that I can find out the specifics on. And if that is something that you want to know, please feel free to send me an email and I can get back to you for sure. Okay, we are going to move to the next question. So this is another kind of reflecting on your application experience, do you remember how long it took to finish the application? And I know it's maybe been a little bit, but even just speaking to like what you remember, or yeah, I guess how it felt in
Yeah.
hindsight.
I don't think it took me too long. I also don't think it took me one night. Like I want to say in total, adding up all the time, it took me an hour maximum. Like I don't think it took me longer than that. I don't think I did it in one night though, just because they do ask for recommenders. So I had to just make sure with my recommender first that they were okay with me putting them down. But in regards to the questions, I think those were not too bad to answer. So I was most likely done with it in about an hour. And I know like when I tell my students now, I'm like, you should be done with it in like 30 minutes or so. So it shouldn't take too long.
Great, great. Yeah, that's really good to know. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a key piece. If there is some of that information to just get, right, the actual entering might not take that long, but you do want to make sure
Yeah.
you're contacting who you need to contact. And that actually brings me to another good question that I saw about the recommender. So, I'm wondering if you can talk to me a little bit about how you went about choosing the person that you ultimately put down or for the recommender, and any advice or tips you would give to folks selecting the recommender.
Yeah. I think my first tip is when I choose my recommender, made sure it was someone that at least like knew my name and knew a little bit about me. So that they had substantial information to write about me on that letter. And then another thing that I did was at this point, I had already asked some professors for recommendation letters for college. So because a lot of professors or teachers like to have a little bit of time to do this letter, what I did was I asked those teachers, I asked one specifically who had already done my letter of recommendation for my college application, if he would just be okay with maybe changing it a little bit so that it was for the Dell scholarship, but using the same one so that then it wasn't too much pressure on anyone and I could have it in a timely manner.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point about, since you're applying to college right now, you are perhaps accumulating recommendations outside of that. And I think it is really, really smart to, take advantage of the work that you may have already done, the work that you're doing. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Um, cool. The next question that I am seeing in the chat that I'm gonna pull is, what is your favorite part of being a Dell Scholar?
That's a really good question. Um, I think right now, I'm getting ready to apply to medical school and I had to go through the whole MCAT process this summer, so I didn't really have that much time to myself. And I think I was just like struggling with making sure that I could like manage my time. And then I also have like the worst testing anxiety ever. So I actually took advantage of their like telehealth kind of therapy sessions. And it was really nice because therapy these days is like so expensive just to like talk to somebody. So having that resource was really nice, especially because it's like online. So that's definitely one that has been really, really helpful recently. And then I also just appreciate that they help you with your textbooks as well, because it was never like something I had to worry about thanks to Dell Scholarship.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I know for me too, it's something that stands out to me because, I think with college, sometimes you want to be mindful of what are some of the fees or costs outside of just tuition, right? It's not just that amount, but right, books are something that you're, going to be thinking about each semester. And I too am a really big fan of the fact that they offer that. So I'm glad that you've had a positive experience with it. Before I move on to the next question, I actually wanted to add something about the recommender piece because I saw someone in the chat asked, can the recommender be a guidance counselor? Firstly, I'm just going to answer that. Yes, they definitely can be a guidance counselor. But something else to note about the recommender is that for the first stage of the application, so the piece that's due on December 1st, you don't actually need you don't need a letter, you don't need your recommender to have done anything except agree to being your recommender. So they don't have to submit anything until January. So for this first stage, really all you need to, uh, you know, worry about is just finding someone who's willing to do that. So yes, I saw that question. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pick the next question. Uh, oh, okay. I think this one ties in well to the one we were just talking about a little bit. So you spoke a little bit about some of those benefits outside of, the just the scholarship piece. I'm wondering if you can, just speak to if there are any other benefits that like maybe haven't been mentioned or the ones that have been mentioned but you haven't yourself talked about yet of ones that you've used and maybe other ways that the Dell Scholars program has played a role in your college experience.
I don't think I've used any of the other ones just yet. But I know there's like a personal guidance kind of person who, or there's a few, but you can schedule an appointment with someone to just meet and discuss whatever you need to discuss. So like if you want to talk about time management or something specific to internships, things like that. There's people for that. And even though I haven't used those programs, I like scheduled an appointment with someone from Dell to just like talk about how to distribute that money or how to use it. And they all were like, they answered in a timely manner. And actually I scheduled an appointment and then I missed that appointment. And when I called her back, she was still very like, we can talk now if you want to, which is so helpful considering that like it was my fault that we missed that phone call. So even though I haven't used the other ones, I would say everyone who's I've like had an experience with at Dell Scholar has been really, really helpful and kind. Like they're all there to help you. And I know Dell like is still working to like create new programs. Like I think they just created a new one, but I don't know like too much information to like share about it. But they're always striving to help us, which is really nice.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so great to hear. Um, cool. I'm gonna just move on to the next question, take advantage of the time we have. Speaking of laptops, as we were just talking about, do you know if the laptop is something that you get to keep even after the 4 years, or is that something that you have to get back?
I'm pretty sure I get to keep it. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. All right. And then, okay, this is a great question too. And I know you were kind of speaking about this a little bit, but maybe we could revisit and provide a little extra clarification. So someone asked if you get a full ride from a college after you get the scholarship, does it go to someone else? Or, what happens if you get a full ride?
Yeah, so I honestly thought the same thing. I was like, if I don't touch my money, it's probably just gonna go to someone else. But it's like saved for you to use for if you decide you want to go to grad school or if you want to go to med school, any other school after undergrad, it's saved for that purpose. And you can also use it if you decide you want to study abroad one semester, or even if you have an internship one summer where they don't pay for housing or they don't pay you. There are options, like you would have to talk to Dell Scholars to see the specifics, but they also have options in those cases to use that financial money. So it's not only necessarily for undergrad or even classes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, really cool. Is that something that you um, took advantage of? Have you studied abroad
I
in your time in
wish.
college?
No, I planned to, but it just didn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. I know it could definitely depend. While we have a bunch of high school seniors here, I definitely encourage you to seek out study abroad if that's something you're interested in. This is a little bit of a tangent, but in my college experience, I know sometimes the cost can be a significant, it can feel like the biggest consideration. And where I went to school, the tuition to study abroad was actually the same tuition that I paid on campus. So just know that there are some programs that have that, and I recommend looking into it if you wanna try that out. Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna go through and find another question. Ooh, love this one. How do you embody the values that the Dell Scholarship wants?
What are they again? Like grit?
Great question. It is grit, potential, and ambition. So that unique GPA.
Okay, perfect. I would say with ambition, like in my case, I just, whenever I commit myself to anything, I commit myself. So if I'm going to like volunteer for a program, I'm going to volunteer, but I'm going to volunteer to like the best of my abilities. And I'm not going to like try to make excuses or just be there for the task on my resume or anything like that. So I would say that's one way that I show those characters. And then perseverance, I think in once you're in college, like it's a little bit different from high school where you just like can feel bombarded with like different activities and responsibilities that you might not have been used to at home. Especially if you don't live at home anymore. So I go to school out of state. So I think I don't necessarily have like my parents to rely on or anything like that. And in those situations, I like have to find my own way of doing things or at least asking for help. Like I think a big thing is when you're persevering, you don't necessarily need to do it on your own. Like use the resources out there for you. And I make sure to do that. And I think those are two ways. Yeah.
Wow. I think that is such an amazing point. I would love to just double click on that and really agree with like how much of a skill it is to just advocate for yourself, ask questions when you need. I also want to take a moment to just acknowledge for anyone here who is, applying to Dell. Let's Get Ready also is going to continue to be here for you. So we have a success program for anyone that is not aware. So we will continue to provide support in college as well. So even if you're selected as a Dell Scholar, amazing, you'll have that support from them. And you can also ask us too. So I just want to put that out there. Okay. All right, I am going to move on to the next question. See that someone asked that the application asks for a FAFSA submission summary. Was that ever problematic for you because FAFSA has had so many delays? So I know, and for the person that asked this question, many of you may know that there were definitely some hiccups, particularly last year with the FAFSA. And, so just calling out that it Nadalin was probably different when you were applying, but I'm wondering if you can still speak to how that process was for you, going through that financial aid piece of the application.
So for me, it was a little different because they hadn't made the changes that they made recently. So I had the application open on October 1st. So I had 2 months to do all of that. And I found some support to help me through the FAFSA application. But I think the FAFSA application itself is really confusing sometimes, especially if you're not used to the language that they use. And I know Let's Get Ready has a lot of resources and like is in contact with a lot of people who have those FAFSA conversations and can walk you through it. So I think if anyone has any questions about that, they should definitely reach out and we can find how to help them find the information they need about FAFSA. But submitting what Dell Scholarship asks for specifically isn't too bad once you've completed the FAFSA. So it's just one it's either a number that they ask for or they ask for the sheet, but either way, you can download the sheet and you'll know which one it is. I think it's called the SAR. once you've completed it. So the hardest part about that section is just going to be completing it. I think last year with all the commotion around like FAFSA, they were very flexible with how it worked, but I think maybe you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I definitely can, and thank you for your response. So, I've worked in this role with Dell for a few years now, and I do want to speak to that because last year, it was the first time they rolled out the new FAFSA, as I'm sure many of you are aware, and there were delays that occurred. However, Dell was really, really accommodating in terms of our students submitting applications. So at that time, the students were semifinalists, and some semifinalists, it was taking longer to get their FAFSA results than what the original due date was. And Dell, worked with us and worked with that student to make sure that they weren't, penalized for something that was out of their control, or, the things with FAFSA it's definitely a bridge that we will cross in time. And I want to also agree with what Neil said about the fact that we're here to help when it comes to FAFSA season. Right, like your coach is here for you, we're here for you, we have resources, and when it does come time to that, please reach out and we'll be able to provide support for sure. Okay. Awesome. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna vocalize just one more question here. Again, I do really, really want to emphasize this, that there are so many amazing questions in the chat that I know we're not able to answer all of them on this call today for the sake of time, but I promise I'm going to be following up with each of you for these questions that I see that are in the chat. So I want to thank you for participating. But the last question that I'm going to read out for you, Nadine, is can you share any other ways you can think of to strengthen your application or make you stand out from others, from your perspective of being a Dell scholar, and maybe speaking both towards like the academic piece and also the extracurriculars, outside of school playing a role?
Yeah, so I think academics is definitely a part of it. I don't think it's the biggest part of it. What you decide to spend your time with, I think will show a little bit more of like your person, and I think that's what they care about. So extracurriculars are definitely something that I would include, and that's something that they take into account. And like I said earlier, I would include extracurriculars that you think are meaningful and that show a little bit about who you are and what your interests are. And then when I'm thinking about strengthening it or making it stand out, one thing that really comes to mind is just having your application done in a timely manner so that you can go to other people, like maybe your coach or your guidance counselor or friend, and just have them review, like if it's a short response, have them review it and see like what they think about it. I think peer review is like really, really helpful in these situations, just to make sure that like you aren't missing something that just because you wrote it. And your friends can like catch that and help you strengthen it that way. But I would say like when you're writing your application, one of the most important things that will make you stand out is like the passion that you have for whatever you have a passion for, like whatever you're interested in, whatever your story is, like just making sure to share that, I think in your own way, like it'll stand out.
Thank you so much, Madeline. I want to add too, that's something that I've, seen that the Dell scholarship asks for and is even included in that kind of, I think it was in the grid GPA, is that it can even include family life. I think that something, of course you're involved in school, maybe you're involved in these extracurriculars, volunteering, but also, there's a lot about maybe the responsibilities that you might take on at home that can speak to, those qualities that you have. And that's definitely something that can be included in your responses. But thank you so, so, so much, Nadine, for all of your insight today. It's been really helpful. And I know I certainly, gain a lot from hearing that, and something that Yeah, I just really want to thank you for your time today. Like I said, we're not going to get to the rest of the questions right now, but we will, I promise. And Nadine, I think that you couldn't have put it any better because you said a couple things that lead us wonderfully into our next section, which is talking about how Let's Get Ready is going to be here to support as you proceed with your application. So a couple of things, this actually isn't on the slide, but it's something that you were just talking about a little bit, which is when you're doing your application, and especially when you get to the short answer pieces. In the past, we posted an essay drive so you can have your responses reviewed if you are interested in having that. So we are here to support with that, but also for this first stage of the application, something that we're going to do in the month of November is host office hours. So that means that you're going to be able to set an appointment with me and ask those, any more individual questions that you may have, or just, need any more support with your application. So I'll ask that you keep an eye out for your email because we'll be sending a link so that you can sign up for that a little bit later on. However, even beyond that, please feel free to reach out to me via email. It's on the slide. You'll probably get a couple more emails from me with some reminders as well. But, I really want to emphasize that I'm here to help. And, any big or small question that you may have, please reach out and I'll be more than happy to respond as best as I can. And with that concludes our time for today. So I am going to go ahead, in order to close this out, I'm going to put a link in the chat. And this is the link to get started on your Dell application. So if you are able to get started tonight, I encourage you to do so. But again, even if not tonight, or even if you can just get started a little bit, please make sure to do so by December 1st. All right, and with that, I'm going to stop recording.